Good morning, everybody. My name is Stacy Beasley, and today I will be lecturing you on the sociological perspective listed in chapter 1. Let me share my screen. So in this class, we are going to be studying society. And so I like to use this piece of art that was created by Banksy. He's a graffiti artist. It's probably one of the most famous graffiti artists because nobody knows exactly who he is. And so we're going to be looking at a lot of different aspects of our society. And so I'd like to, have you think about not just what you're reading in class, but think about how it applies to other places, other things, to be able to generalize what you're learning in the books and applying it to your life is how you truly know you've obtained the knowledge. So I want you to think about, the things that you like in culture. And so, like art is a reflection of our culture, which is what Banksy is trying to get at here. Whether you're into, fine art and design, or if you're into literature and you like to read books or poetry, if you're into dance, or my favorite is comedy, that you see how these art forms reflect the things that are happening in our society. And sociology is the study of human society, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. So we all engage in our culture on an everyday basis. If you are engaged in social media, or if you're watching television or film, these are all reflections of our culture and things that we can study as a part of our processes. So skip forward here. So sociology is a study of society. In Greek, logos, study of, and socios is being with others, so social. And sociology came out of the Enlightenment movement of the late 17th and 18th century, where we're coming away from, the stranglehold that religion had on science, on thought, and starting to think differently. And so we're starting to ask questions about why these things are happening outside of what religion has has given people for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so millennia. Um, so emphasizing reason and individualism rather than what is, tradition tell us. And so developing, the scientific method and trying to do things in a methodical way to find answers. So Auguste Comte was a founder of sociology, and he suggested that scientific methods should be used to understand our social world. And he wanted to know, hey, how does this happen? How are we being brought together? What holds us together? What creates change? And so, in trying to discover these principles and answer these questions, Auguste Comte said, let's use the scientific method to be methodical about how we come to our answers. So Comte saw that sociologists are reformers of society, and that it's not nearly, along with Marx, what he would agree with Marx, where Marx basically said it's not the point to just study it. It is the point of this is to change it, to make it a better place for everybody. But in order to do that, we have to understand what is happening. So positivism is the application of the scientific approach to our social world. And so one of the governing bodies that sociologists use is the American Sociological Association. There are international associations as well, and more regional associations. And so, but the largest in the United States is the American Sociological Association. And so I think it's important that that, we as professionals use this, others in their field use this in order to organize and share information. Um, and we have a once a year meeting where we all get together and we present sometimes our research or teach one another what we're doing or what's happening in the field. And so it can be really a great gathering place of like minds. And it's also meant for students, so students can to present their work, especially if they're thinking about having a career in sociology. So I'm going to skip through this because I have a different video that I've created for you on that subject. But so sociology is the systematic study of human society. If you open up different books, there will be different opinions on what sociology is. The definition I'm giving you is probably not the one that's in your current book, because depending on what book you use, they all change slightly. But I want you to remember that you are studying human society, okay? And that is the most basic definition of sociology. Yes, we are looking at, the different institutions in America, and we are looking at interpersonal relationships within groups, and how one individual may interact with groups. But this is the basic definition. So, the sociological perspective is understanding human behavior by placing it within the broader social context. So whether you're looking at one human and a family group, or one human as it relate to the educational system, or one human in their interactions with peers, or media, or religion, or the government, we can look at all those sort of things. Okay, skipping through this. Okay, so one of the things that sociologists try to do is we study general patterns by collecting data, by doing research. And so what we will do is look for particular patterns by giving out individuals, let's say, surveying, right? If we do survey data. And so we can find out, like, how satisfied students are at NLC or any of the Alamo colleges by surveying them, giving them, let's say, a survey to fill out. And after we collect them and run the data, what we'll find out is that in general, a population, so let's say NLC students, how do they generally feel about their attendance there at the college? And so you can see, are they satisfied, dissatisfied? And then different patterns will arise, like maybe they're satisfied in the morning students from, let's say, 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. But we see that satisfaction goes up after 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. or 10 p.m. Or the students that take classes on the weekends are particularly satisfied or completely dissatisfied. So we can see different patterns that will arise based on the population and the way that they respond. And so we look at demographics like, age and income and race or religion. And so, C. Wright Mills basically said we look at individuals in order to generalize about a population. And so that is really important because a lot of people, think they know about society. And in general, you can make some, maybe educated guesses, but we can't truly say that we know for sure until we actually study a particular phenomenon. So this would be the sociological perspective. So, we can look at different things. We can research, like, how do people select their mates? Is it because they smell good? Is it because they look good? Is it because they have money and can pay for a family? And so people select a mate based on varying reasons. And so for men, it may be more attraction, and for women, it may be more, can they support a family? Can they support a person and children if we decide to have children? And so, we can also look at different cultural patterns, who goes to school, meaning like higher education. Is it the upper class, the middle class, the lower class? And within those ranges, which race, which gender is more likely to go to school, then what topics are they more likely to study? So um, we get this by researching the population and finding out what is the fact in certain populations. And so we can also look at gender differences. So there's lots of topics. So some other important topics like education, religion, economics, politics and government, social movements, social justice, population changes, technology, healthcare, gerontology, which is the study of aging, social stratification, our uses of language, different social institutions, bureaucracies, deviance, crime, human sexuality, marriage and family, class differences, racial and ethnic differences. And so some of the more controversial issues in America, like affirmative action, immigration, sexism, how are we defining the family, welfare, reform, inner city crime, income inequality, racism, hate crime, fat acceptance, abortion, child soldiers, although Americans don't typically get into that too much because it doesn't seem to be a social problem here in our society. However, it is in many places around the world. Cloning, the internet, pornography, LGBTQ issues, militia movements, prostitution, marijuana and medical marijuana, and gun violence in schools are all very controversial topics in the United States that sociologists would study. So how do we do this? So in chapter 2, I'll get into more how do we do our research. And if you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to me. I'm available through email, of course. And yeah, I hope we have a wonderful time in this class. And if anything ever comes up, please know that I'm available and I'm only an email away. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye.